Hello, good evening. This is your favorite mixed bag business program, Business Live. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Viafe. In this edition, Chief Executive of the Chamber of Telecommunications, Kweku Sechiado, emphasizes increase in the number of smartphones contributing towards Ghana's agenda towards attaining a cashless economy. World Bank President Jim Yong Kim says he does not think Ghana and other African countries with high debt levels risk falling back into HIPC. And the Minister of Trade and Industry, Dr. Ekos Piogabra, calls on corporate entities in the country to develop a more economic and sustainable social policy to streamline corporate social responsibility activities. These are the headlines. You can always get interactive with us by tweeting at Joy Business GH, and of course on Facebook we are on Joy Business. For more business news, don't hesitate to log on to myjoyonline.com/business. We'll be right back after this break. Don't go away.
Business Live today is brought to you by GCB Bank.
Thanks for staying. Welcome back to Business Live. Now, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Telecommunications, Kweku Sechiado, has emphasized the increase in the number of smartphones in the country as key to the country's agenda towards attaining a cashless economy. Smartphones in use across the country are estimated to be over 8 million. This, according to Mr. Sechiado, has somewhat boosted mobile financial transactions from 29 million to over 37 million within the last 2 years. Speaking at the launch of the new Techno Phantom 6 Plus smartphone, he said this development should also reduce the cost of doing business.
In Ghana, the estimated number of smartphones is 8 million. And that's more than double the number in 2014. Back then, mobile phone connections stood at 29 million. In October 2015, the number of mobile phone connections had grown to 33 million from 29 the previous year. And today, as we launch the Phantom 6 and 6 Plus, we have over 37 million mobile connections in Ghana. That's 8 million more connections in just 2 years. And to think that in 1993 or so, there were just about 4,000 mobile phones. But one area of significant growth and promise in the mobile telephony industry in Ghana is mobile money. In 2014, there were 2.3 million active mobile money customers. And today, there are 7 million active mobile money customers. That's a 3-fold increase in just 2 years. Increasingly, as more and more people sign up and become active users, will reduce the need for cash. More and more payments will be made virtually.
The World Bank President, Jim Yong Kim, says he does not think Ghana and other African countries with high debt levels risk falling back into debt-distressed levels or becoming HIPC. Mr. Jim gave this response when he was asked about how the rising debt levels of some African countries, especially for those who have exited HIPC, risk falling back into that category again. But speaking at a press conference at the World Bank annual IMF spring meetings in Washington, D.C., Mr. Jim said the debt levels in these countries, including Ghana, are not that bad.
Well, Larry, I think if you look at debt to GDP ratios, they're still in most of Africa still pretty reasonable. We are not, there are some countries that are now above 50%, but there's still many countries that are still quite a bit below 50% in terms of debt to GDP ratio. So what we're doing now is to really try to focus on things like, can we create asset classes even, for example, in African infrastructure that will require relatively less indebtedness and really bring private sector investments into these countries. We're watching debt levels very, very carefully. I'm not yet concerned that we're reaching a debt crisis level, certainly not in most of sub-Saharan Africa, but we have to watch it. Now, if you look at the places that have gotten into trouble recently with debt, two of them are Lebanon and Jordan. And they went, Jordan itself went from around, a little over 50% debt to GDP to over 90%. And that was mostly because of the response to the refugee crisis. So one of the things that we are now doing is we're being much more strategic and much more flexible in the way we use concessional finance. So for Jordan and Lebanon, we're actually providing them concessional lending. We took some money from the UK that was given as a grant and go to the capital markets, blend the two, and can provide 15 to 20-year money at close to 0%, because we want to show that when countries provide a great service for the world in absorbing Syrian refugees, that they should not become indebted, and certainly not indebted with short maturity, high interest debt. So we're following it very closely, and I think the new flexibility that we have in using concessional resources will help us even more in being able to respond to situations like Jordan and Lebanon.
Still in Washington, D.C., government needs to cut down excess expenditure aggressively to be able to achieve the end-of-year target of 66% debt to GDP ratio. These were highlighted by the Deputy Director of Fiscal Affairs at the IMF, Belhassan Haji, in an interview with Joy Business George Riafe at the ongoing IMF meeting in Washington, D.C. The current debt levels are still high, he said. These were part of conditions set by the IMF to ensure government controls its debt management appropriately.
That is stabilizing the economy and bringing that down. However, it's still, I think, business unfinished, right? That still remains very high. Even at 66% is quite high. And to achieve the 66%, it still needs to put in place a very ambitious program, both in terms of the macro stabilization part, but also in terms of structural reforms. So I would say progress has been made, but still more work to be done. What I would say is that you need consistency, and you need, like Mr. Gaspar suggested, that you need consistency in terms of the implementation of the reforms, and you need to continue essentially with the reform program. Indeed, if you basically were to reverse some of the measures, the outcome would not be guaranteed. So I would suggest essentially continuing with the program and continue with the successful implementation in the recent years. Given the fact that debt is relatively high, I think I will not get into the specifics on. Maybe we should ask the African department. They will have their press conference on Friday in terms of the right financing mix. But I will certainly be careful in terms of taking much more debt. I think both, but certainly on the adjustment will be tilted more toward expenditure, although revenue measures are important as well, and we have called for more of the broadening of the tax base and making essentially the tax system a little bit fairer as well. But the adjustment, you're right, will be driven to a large extent by the spending side.
And back here in Ghana, Minister of Trade and Industry Dr. Ekos Pio-Gabra has called on corporate entities in the country to develop a more economic and sustainable social policy to streamline corporate social responsibility activities. Dr. Gabra says the private sector's contribution to social responsibility in the country could be enhanced through the systematic implementation of a sustainable policy. The Trade and Industry Minister was speaking at the launch of the National CSR policy in Accra.
Companies in the past have embarked several initiatives that they considered as corporate social responsibility. This, however, did not fall in line with proper policy guidelines and eventually did not yield the desired results. The development of a policy document for CSR was commended by the New Partnership for African Development in its 2011 peer review report. Speaking during the launch of the Ghana National Corporate Social Responsibility Policy in Accra, Dr. Spio Gabra said, without a sustainable and economic policy, the targeted national development for the country will not be achieved. He therefore urged corporate entities to develop appropriate policies to meet their targets.
Corporate social responsibility must also be commercially and financially sustainable. So we want it to be economically sustainable, socially sustainable, environmentally sustainable, but you cannot do those things if for whatever reason the programs also are not commercially and financially sustainable. So I was delighted to see a number of programs that GIZ is involved in, some of which border on commercial activity, whether it is processing or packaging or whatever it is that is being done. And I'll be interested in exploring some of this a little bit more with them. I hope that the departments in the Ministry of Trade and Industry that are responsible, especially for industry, beyond the CSR aspect, are actually sufficiently engaged with the GIZ and the employment program that we saw with regards to any other areas in which the ministry.
His part, German ambassador to Ghana, Christoph Retzlaff, outlined some relevant actions that Germany has undertaken to make it the best country within Europe. He noted that such policies could be emulated by Ghana to help sustain its CSR policy.
In social responsibility, Germany is actually one of the leaders in Europe and maybe also worldwide. We have always seen the private sector and companies as a very relevant part in our society. We have in Germany developed a concept that's called social market economy. That means that gaining profits, earning profits for company is one thing, but having a social responsibility for the employers and the workers is another thing. You have to bring both together. You have, as an entrepreneur, you have, of course, a responsibility towards your people working in your company. You have a responsibility towards the environment, and these are all examples.
The policy is seeking to promote a partnership between the public sector, private sector, and the community to create shared value for society and entities.
Now, as cost of goods and services rise at a fast pace, consumers continue to explore more affordable and convenient means of meeting their needs. This trend has led to the increasing drift for night shopping activities. They say they are able to attract lower prices for various items they purchase at night. Joy News' Faustina Safo has been looking at sales and marketing at night and has more in this report.
Ghana's average inflation is 17.17%. With the increase in cost of goods and services, consumers seek more affordable means of meeting their needs. Well, the solution is right here at the La Paz Night Market. Wondering why the place is packed at this time? Well, we'll get to find out together. From personal through to household, electrical and even consumable items, consumers flood the market, which actively starts from 5 p.m. and sometimes peak at 10 p.m. Stretching from the Las Palmas Junction to La Paz and the Niboy Town Junction, vendors arrange their goods on both sides of the pedestrian walkway in a desperate bid to catch customers' attention. The marketing strategy can get quite innovative, with traders sometimes chanting catchy phrase. Some traders share why they choose to trade at night.
Sometimes in the afternoon, the area people do warriors. So let's usually in the evening before we can get a chance and then sell our market. And then you see, the problem here is we don't have an actually place that we can place our market and sell them. So that is why sometimes we're in the traffic.
Oh, we like here because we don't have money to go and rent stores. You understand? So we do this one, if God permits, then small time we get our store.
As for here, the market at night, it used to go on. But sometimes when the car is coming, like we used to push our things back.
Some consumers cited convenience of location as a reason they shop at night, while others believe price of goods are much more affordable at night as compared to daytime.
This night I just close for work where I just see the phone. I just look inside. If I see the better one I can buy, I can use my choice to buy it. I think say La Paz one is better to me because it's very low price for me. Anyone we have choose inside, I know say it's very low for me.
Buying at La Paz is, to me, it's more better than distance, like going to Circle and a lot of places. I live around and I choose to buy around.
This similarly convenient trader-consumer partnership has, however, raised some security concerns.
When coming around, you have to be careful, and it's a normal thing, like people do pickpockets. It's something about you being careful and knowing what you're doing.
Faustina Safo for Joy News.
Thank you very much for staying. You're still on Business Live. It's now time for interview of the day. The Minerals Commission is insisting it would use a range of options, including legitimate force, to eject illegal miners from its AngloGold or Boise concession, who it says is occupying the site illegally. This, according to the Commission, will be employed if the miners fail to move from the concession by Monday. The illegal activities of the miners, the Commission says, has not only led to the stalling of the mining operations by the firm, but has also caused over 100 deaths. Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission, Dr. Tony Obin, has been speaking with Joy News, Kuku Aban.
If they don't follow this, the two things could happen. One, as I said, we cannot guarantee that other means will not be used to get them out. Two, they will lose the opportunity to use the ground that have been made available by the Minerals Commission. That is something that is given. If you don't move by the 10th of October and you are moved by any other means, then you lose the chance of being prioritized for the ground that has been made available. Because that ground, to be fair, is for all Ghanaians. It should have been possible for anybody to apply for and be given. But we have said no, we are not going to accept applications until we have given priority to these people who are there. Because after all, one of the reasons why we were told they went on this mission of the underground was because they were looking for grounds to work on. So we've given them the ground. I don't think there's any problem anymore. And we just didn't give the ground. In fact, machines were given, equipment were given to clear the place for them as well. So I don't know what else we could do. I think they should complement the efforts of government, the efforts of the commission, by moving away and taking advantage of what has been done, what has been made available.
So if they don't move by Monday, they forfeit the opportunity to be regularized on the new concession. And you said other means. Also maybe, or you cannot guarantee other means might not be used. That include what? Military force?
Well, other legitimate means, including legitimate use of force. I am sure. I mean, I'm not able to be firm on this because I am not the force. I am not the person applying the force. I am not the institution. If Minerals Commission were to be the institution that would apply the force, I would say we would apply the force. But I know that there is a certain level of understanding that if they don't move, then the obvious option is to be moved.
And that's all we have for you in this edition of Business Live. Thank you very much for your company. Do join us again same time next Monday for another interesting package. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Meanwhile, you can stay interactive with us by tweeting at Joy Business GHN on Facebook. Joy Business is our page. For more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Have a great weekend.